Welcome to Speculative Soapbox, where you hear the pitch straight from the author's mouth.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Speculative Soapbox. This week we have with us Gary Vanucci, the author of Wake the Dead. Gary, thank you so much for being with us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So can you tell us a little bit about Wake the Dead? It sounds like a really interesting book.
Sure. It's pretty much, well, it turned out it's a zombie novel, obviously. But it's a little bit more. I just started writing a story. I was inspired by zombie fiction and The Walking Dead and everything, and I wanted to do a specific tale that I had in mind that I've been sitting on for a while. Now, I do write fantasy, but this one I just took a break from a series I'm working on to write this novel, and I started it around Thanksgiving, and it came together in about 3-4 months. It was done, edited, everything, so I wrote it pretty quickly. But the basis
Really?
of the story is it surrounds the story of one guy and what happens to him, and it's a post-apocalyptic story, and there's zombies in it, obviously, but I think it focuses more on the human condition.
Cool. How does it what sets it apart from other zombie novels or zombie stories even?
Well, again, I think that it's sooner or later, like zombies, if you're surrounded by zombies, you become desensitized to them after a while. So it's a story about this man persevering and having to overcome one tragedy after another and finding a reason to go on. Now, he does have a companion that he finds along the way that's a wolf, and he finds this cub, and it's kind of they kind of develop this rapport over a while. So it's a little bit different, I guess, than anything else you might read in a zombie fiction. But again, it's meeting people, learning to trust them, and basically trying to stay true to yourself and keeping a moral compass, that kind of a thing. So I think that in that type of environment, you're faced with decisions that you may not you wouldn't make under normal circumstances.
Yeah, exactly. Have you ever read, I'm assuming you have, The Road or seen the movie The Road?
I did, actually, just recently, believe it or not.
Yeah, yeah, and when you're talking about the reason to go on, that movie really, I think that movie and that book did the best, where it's like, I probably would just want to die in that situation. What would be the point?
Yes, exactly, and that's the point. Is the what's your purpose for living, right?
Yep.
So meeting new people and trying to develop and wanting to persevere, wanting to create a new world, a new environment in which to live in that's safe and sustainable. That's I think the purpose. And Alex is the main character in my book, and he meets someone, and goes on. Then he finds these people in a Renaissance fair where there's a castle there. That's kind of that was the main attraction for it, was that this castle was going up brick by brick, and some of the people that were at the Renaissance fair, they're kind of like used it as fortification and that sort of thing. So it's kind of a neat little twist on that. But yeah, I won't go into too much detail about it, but that's the gist of it.
Well, I'm glad you had that last little detail. That makes it sound really interesting, with the Renaissance fair castle is the place to stay. That's cool. So you write a lot of fantasy too. I noticed just looking at your author page on Amazon. Can you talk about some of those other works? How many books have you published?
Well, I have a series in what I call the realm of Ashenclaw, and it was just I don't know. It was really hard to explain, but I kind of have the typical the archetypes, I should say, not stereotypes, but archetypes there. There's a warrior, there's a couple of rogue type characters, but I wrote a story about a couple people that come together under these circumstances to try to, they go on a quest and they need to recover this artifact that was taken. and then I created this world and an environment of rich history, and um, put these people in it and everything, and the world started taking off on itself, and the story kind of took on a life of its own as well. And it's, I've written a little bit slowly, but that was it was my stepping stone type series. I kind of bit off a lot at first, so it was a lot of work, and I've edited my first book, which is Covenant of the Faceless Knights. That was my first novel.
Mm-hmm.
That's probably been edited and re-edited and probably 50 times. I can't even tell you how many times.
Oh, wow.
Probably. But the version that's out right now is I'm very proud of. Yeah, I wrote that story, and then I had ideas as like it was kind of a 6-book story arc for this particular cast of characters, including a series of prequels that I wrote.
Okay.
After I wrote the main novel, I went back and I wrote short stories to kind of give you a little bit of a history on the characters before you get to know them in Covenant of the Faceless Knights and moving forward. Which kind of I don't know if you've ever read fantasy, which
yeah.
I'm sure you have, and I looked at your stuff as well. But if you read any kind of Forgotten Realms or Dragonlance and that sort of thing, there's this rich world, and you're just thrown into all these characters at once.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, my wife had read some of the book, and she's like, I'm a little confused as far as what's going on, and so I was like, okay, so if I go back and I write prequels, I'll kind of introduce you to these characters one at a time, right? And then you kind of have you have a little bit of a history about what they're all about, and when you meet them in the story, you're like, oh, I know who these people are now. It's kind of breaks down a little bit of the confusion, I think, that might come along with meeting tons of characters all at once.
Yeah, well, that's a good approach to it. In the last podcast I was doing, we were talking about Steven Erikson's books. What is the name of that series? Malazan? I don't know if you've ever read those.
I have not.
Oh God, talk about just throwing in a whole bunch of characters and giving no backstory. I was so lost in that novel, but that's cool. So, how many you said some short stories? How many short stories did you put out to go along with those main novels?
There's 6 actually, 6 short stories. There's one for each of the main characters in the book. And then I actually wrote a prelude, or a pre-prologue, I guess is what it was. So, because the prologue of Covenant of the Faceless Knights is these 3 archetypal, what do you call it, patriarchic type characters coming back from getting their butts handed to them from something, and you don't know why they're doing it. So they say, we've got to call in the Faceless Knights, and the story starts from there. So I went back and I told the story of what happens to them before they come into the High Council chamber and discuss what they're doing next. So it kind of leads progressively right up, right into Covenant of the Faceless Knights, and then right into the next couple of books as well.
Cool. Did you so with the short stories being released, how did you put those out? Are you publishing these on Amazon as like a free thing to get readers interested in the main novels, or?
Yes, that's exactly what I was doing. I actually published them one at a time for 99 cents, and eventually put them all into one anthology, and I put that at 99 cents for a little while, and then I put it up on Smashwords and made it free, and Amazon followed suit, and so yeah, at the moment it's perma-free, and to try to get readers involved, and I think that once they get through that, if they give the second book a chance, I think they would very much like it. So
very cool.
Some people tend not to like short stories, so to speak.
Yeah.
But
good. How did you notice a big jump in the purchase for the novels after the short stories went free? I've heard a lot of advice from like self-publishing podcasts talking about, put up something out there for free to hook people.
Yes and no. Yes, in the fact that I have seen some sales after that, but the books had been out for, a year and a half or so.
Okay.
So by the time I made that book perma-free, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of, people are trickling in again a little bit at a time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of a sad story, but I had to. I kind of learned as I was going along what to do.
Yeah.
So,
I think that's how a lot of people do it.
Now, yeah, exactly. You get a lot of stepping stones and that sort of thing. So you learn by doing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But with Wake the Dead, I had a good idea what to do and wrote a story, got a good cover, a catchy title, and put it out, and in the hopes of people liking it. And I left it open-ended to where I could write a sequel if I wanted to, or I could just leave it the way it was.
No, I mean, you seem to have got some kind of audience, because I found your book fairly easily when I was looking for people I was interested in having on the podcast. You're on the, Amazon with the new releases. I'd say you're probably fourth or fifth down with a decent number of reviews, and I imagine it's doing okay.
Yeah, it's doing much better than any of my other books have ever done, put it frankly.
You must have did something right.
Yes, exactly. So it's learn. That's why I said you learn a little bit here and there, and how to go about it, and what it takes to sell. And I couldn't even tell people, in all honesty, how to go about things. It's trial and error, and hit or miss. It's whether the genre is good or not. And fantasy is a very broad fan base.
Oh yeah.
There's so many different types of fantasy, and I'm not sure about the zombie fiction, to be honest with you. I haven't read a whole lot of it, but I was inspired by Walking Dead and some zombie movies.
Yep.
And decided to throw my hat in the ring. And I kind of just wrote a story that just happened to be about, zombies. You know what I mean? If you're going to put it into a category, it's post-apocalyptic zombie fiction. But, I hope it's a lot more when people read it, that they get more out of it.
Very cool.
I've gotten some good reviews, so.
Yeah, I mean, what you talked about so far, and I think most zombie stories are more about the experience of the people than the zombies. Walking Dead is huge with... My mom watches The Walking Dead, and she would never be watching a zombie show. And I sold it to her by saying, this is not about the zombies. It's about the people surviving with the zombies all around them.
Exactly.
And it's a really cool setting that you can use to tell some really interesting stories. So, do you write full-time with all the novels that you're putting out?
Oh, no. No, I have a full-time job, and I write when I can. I try to write 1,000 words a day if I can, but I'd be lying to you if I say I hit that mark every day.
Yeah, that's how it goes. So what's your full-time job?
I do tech support on the phone for a company I will not name.
That sounds exciting. Does that give you time to write while you're sitting on hold waiting for the next caller to come on?
Now, see, that's the thing, is that I wish I did, but no, I literally, from the time I log into my job, and there's a lot of perks to it. I get to work from home, which is nice. But
that would be nice.
From the time I log in to the time I leave, and I work 8 straight hours, straight through, there is no downtime. Almost never.
Wow.
It's insane, yeah. That's why I said, I mean, I would love to have a job in which I could have some downtime where I could write or think, but yeah, this job does not afford that.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds intense. I'm surprised you're able to turn around and then do writing after that.
Yeah, it is. It's well, I mean, writing for me is it's kind of relaxing,
It's a release from that job.
Yeah, really is. It's my entertainment. It's my escape, where I can pretty much, I have voices in my head saying, "Hey, we want to come out. We want to visit some people. Let's get us on paper and see what happens."
Very cool. Are you part of any writing groups or anything like that?
Yes, I have a group of writers that we have a blog. Kind of hasn't gotten a lot of traction, but it's called Skull Dust Circle. And it's myself and a couple of other fantasy writers, Ross Kitson and William Kenny and Jeremy Laszlo, who's very successful with his Blood and Brotherhood series, and he's got another one out called Children of the After. He's doing really well. Very impressed by his sales and his work. He's really good when it comes. I take a lot of advice from him anyway, but. Yeah, so we kind of kick ideas around with each other, and and see what happens from there.
How did you find these people for this writing group? I'm part of one as well, and I get asked all the time how to get a good writing group together, and I don't have a very good answer for that.
Yeah, I don't know. It just kind of happens where you just kind of stumble across people on social media, Facebook and Twitter, and communicate with them, and it's a pretty cool community out there, in all honesty. I mean, there's some cutthroat people, but for the most part, I feel that a lot of the independent authors are very nice people.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, that's been my experience.
Yeah, you reach out to some people and you see how they're doing, and you talk to them and get to know them a little bit, and one thing leads to another. All of a sudden, you're talking on the phone, and you get to know them and kind of develop a relationship with some people that you would otherwise never have met.
Very cool. What do you do outside of writing? I know you talked a lot about Forgotten Realms and Dragonlance, and I think I saw stuff about D&D on your website. So I'm assuming you play D&D and other RPGs.
I did. I don't have a whole lot of downtime anymore, but yeah, I play a once a month gaming group with. We're playing 4th edition Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay.
Been playing for a while. I did play D&D all the way up from 2nd edition, maybe even a little bit before that, all the way up to current. Now I've played many role-playing games. Growing up, watched a lot of movies, read comic books, graphic novels, a lot of fantasy. Huge fan of Martin, and Ari Salvatore is my go-to. I've pretty much read his stuff all the way from late 80s. I started reading him all the way up to current.
Yep, I've read pretty much all the Driz stuff. Well, I shouldn't say that. It's been a while. I imagine he's put out quite a few, but I read a good, I don't know, 9, 10 Driz Duerden novels. Yeah. So
I'm a little bit behind on that. I'm a little behind on that series as well, but probably 2 or 3 books still back. But yeah, he's really, he was my inspiration, believe it or not, to pursue the writing.
Mm-hmm. I've heard him on a few podcasts before. He sounds like a really nice guy.
Yeah, I've met him at one of the Gen Cons.
Oh, have you?
2011, 2012, I can't remember. But yeah, really nice guy. Absolutely, selfless. Met him and his wife. She's really nice as well. And yeah, they really, take an interest in fans and what they have to say, and very cool people. Also met Aaron Evans and Eric Scott DeBuy at the same one. Okay. And they also write for Forgotten Realms. And I've been friends with Eric since. We correspond on Facebook and stuff like that. He's a really nice guy as well.
That's cool. You talked about playing a 4th edition campaign right now. I have never played 4th edition. We're going to get real geeky for a second. Okay. I've never played 4th edition. I did 2nd and 3rd. And how 4th edition seemed like an MMO that they tried to turn into a pen and paper RPG. Is it better than it looked to me on paper?
Well, it has the feel of that for sure. I was a huge fan of 3.5, 3rd edition 3.5. Loved it. Didn't think. I mean, it was, I guess, a little power gamery at higher levels, but I don't think it was broken. But yeah, 4th edition does absolutely have a feel of an MMO RPG converted to tabletop. Absolutely. Yeah. The tank, the healer, that sort of thing. And again, you have a little bit more variety, and it's kind of hard to label those things that way because there's so much you can think outside the box. You can also run a 4th edition campaign with a ton of role playing if you want to. I mean, it's totally up to you how you want to run your game, but the combats tend to be a little lengthy.
Yeah. Well, and it's just the rule system that you're using to run the campaign. It's really the game itself is actually the story that's coming out of it.
Yep.
Yeah, I started with second edition. I used to play a ton. I really was a huge fan of Planescape and Dark Sun, and
Okay.
there's another campaign that I can't think of. But yeah, I don't get a lot of chance to play anymore. So what books are you reading right now? You talked about comic books too. Are you a lot of comic books, a lot of novels that you're reading?
I don't read comic books anymore,
Hmm.
just because I don't. I don't know why. I just don't read them anymore. I do read novels, and I'm reading a lot of indie stuff right now just to whet my appetite with, just to see how other people are doing. And I can't remember. I'm reading a couple of friends of mine's books that was it Matt Chiaridi's Ghosts of Demons Past.
Okay.
I'm reading James Vernon's, another friend I met on social media. He just released Bound to the Abyss. I'm reading that. Very
That one
good
sounds
stuff.
familiar, definitely.
Yeah, it's very cool. He did it really well. He did a nice job. Reading one of my friend Jeremy. I'm still reading The Choosing. I've been reading it for a while, off and on. That's
Hmm.
Jeremy Laszlo's first perma-free book. Um, Charity Parkerson. I'm reading one of her books. Jeez, I'm trying to think. I'm like juggling about six or seven different novels all at the same time. I kind of like read a little bit from one, jump to another. It's kind of research and enjoyment, you know.
Hmm.
So
Quite a bit going on there.
yeah.
So, what is your advice for other writers that are just getting into this, or even people that have been doing it for a while? I mean, stuff that you learned along the way.
Well, I would say try to listen to advice from people that have been doing it for a while. Reach out to help, advice. If you can get some help from people that have been doing it for a while, you might not make some mistakes or pitfalls. I would say be open to anything, any suggestions. Do some research. Work at your craft. Um, Definitely develop a thick skin. You'll absolutely need that because, and here's the beautiful thing is that you go into it with no money, right?
Yep.
You need to put out a decent product that you want to charge somebody money for. You know, maybe even if it's 99 cents up to 2.99. We'll talk about the Amazon market, marketing. What do you call it? Archetype thing.
Hmm.
So, you're putting minimal money. You're going to get minimal money back,
Hmm.
right? Initially, but you've got to pay for a cover. You've got to put out a good product that you're proud of. It needs to be edited. A lot of this stuff costs money, and you're already
Yep.
in for, hundreds of dollars, if not thousands sometimes. Depends upon how bad, how crazy you get with it. And you're
Yeah.
charging minimal money. You hope to make some of that money back. But some of these, and what the fans, I guess, don't realize is that sometimes, you can't spend all that money on editing and covers and that sort of thing. So it's a catch-22 as far as giving indie authors a chance. And there's some really good books out there that you
Hmm.
might not otherwise find.
Oh, definitely.
Um, you know what I mean? Like you have to sift through and look for stuff and give people a chance. Absolutely. But yeah, thick skin, work on your craft. I mean, and persevere. I mean, there's going to be a lot of reasons not to do it after a while. Trust me. You know,
So, I'm assuming you use an editor for your own works.
I do, or I should say, I did. I use a lot of editors and a couple beta readers.
Hmm.
I do have. I'm very lucky to have a close knit group of beta readers that are very, very good proofreaders, and they edit for content for me a little bit. They'll tell me what this needs, what to take out, that sort of thing. So
Yep.
a lot of it's free, quote unquote.
But a lot of times you're returning that favor by doing the same thing for their work too.
Yes, exactly.
I imagine.
Yep,
Yeah. I mean, you're paying with your time. Yeah, I
exactly.
think a lot of people would be very surprised at the cost of hiring a good artist for a cover and hiring copy editors and content editors. That stuff is not cheap at all.
No, no, it's not.
It's not as easy as just putting out 80,000 words and calling it a novel and putting it up on Amazon. There's a lot more that goes into it.
Yep, you're absolutely correct.
Very cool, Gary. So where can people find your books?
I am on, well, the Realm of Ash and Claw is everywhere. That's on Smashwords, Kobo, Barnes & Noble, anywhere you can find, that Smashwords distributes, and Amazon, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Wake the Dead is currently only on Amazon, as I'm using the KDP Select.
Oh, okay, yeah.
There, so you have to be exclusive through the first 90 days with them.
Yep.
I'm thinking about re-upping with them as well for the next 90 days because the freebie giveaways tend to do well for me.
Oh, yeah?
So, minimal advertising, you know what I mean? But I'm also on Goodreads, I'm on Wattpad, I'm on social media, Twitter, Facebook, Google+, Pinterest,
all over the place.
You name it, yeah.
And how can people follow you? What's your Twitter handle?
It's my name. It's at Gary F. Vanucci. F is in Frank.
Okay.
Vanucci. I'm also, before I forget, I'm also working on a companion piece for Wake the Dead as we speak.
Oh yeah? Can you give a little preview of that? What's it about?
Yes, this one. This is actually a. It's not a sequel. It's a companion piece. It's actually, I'm writing it from another person's perspective during that same time frame.
Mm-hmm.
This one is actually, I haven't come up with a title yet, but it's actually from a female perspective, and she is a zookeeper at a smallish type zoo, and she's a primate expert, and the zombie apocalypse breaks out at the zoo.
Like with the animals or with the people?
With the people.
Oh, okay.
It's quite the chaotic environment.
That sounds like a cool idea.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yep. So I was thinking about doing about 2 or 3 companion pieces, and then quite possibly connecting it all at the end at one point, bringing everyone together.
Now, with these companion pieces, are you talking full novels for these?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I kind of write the story, and then when it's done, it's done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But, I mean, Wake the Dead, I think, was about 70,000 words.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, I'm already approaching 35 to 40 in this one, 40,000. I could see it probably being about 50, somewhere between 50 and 60,000. So I consider that a novel.
Yeah.
I think anywhere over, 30,000 I think is good. But I consider it a full-length novel, yeah.
Very cool. Well, Gary, thank you so much for being on.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Yep. If anyone's interested in taking a look at my writing, I'm at tjredig.com. My Twitter is at tjredigwriter. The podcast website is speculativesoapbox.com, and the Twitter handle is at speculative_soap because I couldn't fit it all into one word or one thing. Gary, again, thank you so much for being on.
You got it, TJ.